There's a picture by a guy named Cody Miller. He's a wonderful artist. The painting is just called The Kingdom of God. Look at it for just a second. The thing that strikes me about it is the beautiful diversity. The kingdom of God has a few characteristics. First, it's more diverse than we could ever imagine. Like an invasive species, the mustard plant. It has unlimited potential if it falls on fertile soil. And it has an inherent smallness about it. So I want you, if you are from a small church, don't beat yourself up because you don't have 1,000 people on Sunday. You know, some of the churches that have been on stage here, they have more people on Sunday than live in my county. Serious, we have 10,000 in our county, 2,000 in our town. 150 on Sunday morning. We are the biggest church in our county. And small churches are significant in God's eyes, and the kingdom of God has an inherent smallness about it. So never underestimate your significance in the eyes of God or your significance in terms of kingdom impact. Of course, living in a small town in a rural county, we've got some knuckleheads. And one Saturday rather, they came through my neighborhood. The knuckleheads I'm talking about in this particular instance were the KKK. They dropped off flyers on every driveway just in my neighborhood about, call us if you want more information. It had a number on it, and it had all of this awful stuff about different races and Jewish people and all this kind of junk. And I walked around my neighborhood that morning trying to pick up these flyers off of some of my neighbors' driveways, as many as I could. And other people began to come out, and we had a conversation in the driveway. And we decided we needed to do something in the neighborhood to unify people so that the message of hate didn't prevail. And so I bought this sign to put in my yard. No matter where you are from, we're glad you are a neighbor. I live in this rural community in Virginia. Until I put that sign out, I had no idea that we had Buddhist neighbors, Hindu neighbors. There's a Muslim family that lives around the corner on a cul-de-sac from us, and they came to my door and knocked on our door, and they were crying, these women wearing hijab, and they said, nobody has ever told us that they were glad to be our neighbor, and they were crying. And the movie that we had for this outdoor movie night, you can probably see the little sign. We bought an outdoor movie screen on the church's dime, and of course, we did a documentary that dropped the same week it came out on DVD and on Amazon. We were able to show this in our neighborhood. It's a documentary about my favorite television evangelist of all time, Fred Rogers. And we even got a 6-foot cardboard cutout of Fred Rogers so people could take selfies with him at the movie night. And we had about 30 or 40 neighbors come out and enjoy this evening with us. And we said, well, why are we just going to do this in our neighborhood? And we ended up doing it in 4 other neighborhoods. And had about 400 people total come to see these movies. The name of the movie, of course, is Won't You Be My Neighbor? And it started a whole series of conversations in our county about what does it mean to be a good neighbor. I think this is a fundamental principle, and it's been a theme for me and what I'm hearing in this conference, and it's this, that mission, however we may define it and in whatever form it may take, begins with listening. Mission begins with listening. One of the things I love about this conference here, I don't know if you're Baptist or Presbyterian or non-denominational or Lutheran, and none of that matters here because the gospel is bigger than all of those lines that we draw in the sand. And I think the culture is finally putting us in a spot in the American church where we realize how utterly useless all of these lines are in a post-Christian context. Listening is where mission begins, not with my denominational theology or bent, right? Listening first and foremost to God's Spirit. A great missiologist, David Bosch from South Africa, once said that mission is not about taking Jesus with us. We've done missions in such a colonialistic way in our own nation's history. Christian mission is rather finding where God's Spirit is already present and already moving and already working and joining God. And I think in all of the stories that we have heard from this platform, we have seen that God's Spirit quite often is already present, already moving, and all we have to do is follow the signs. And that begins with listening. And so what does it mean for you to listen to God, to listen to your community, and to listen even to yourself? I was telling some friends over lunch, I'm beginning to realize I can't lead my own community of faith to listen if I'm not modeling that. Part of what that means for me is I'm finally to a point in my own life where I'm ready to work on my own junk, my own baggage. In the last 2 or 3 months, I've started seeing a therapist. It's been one of the best things I've ever done. I'm working through mild depression, and I'm owning it. And when I talk about it with my church people, I have a greater sense of authenticity with them because of my own vulnerability and my own willingness to be confessional in my preaching. And so, how is God calling you to listen? When we began listening to our community, we were able to start an after-school program for disadvantaged students at our local high school. After people at the local high school got to know who I was and who our church was, I was invited to be a crisis counselor when one of the teachers at the high school was killed in a police-involved shooting in Richmond. After I had that opportunity, the elementary principal's husband died very suddenly and tragically, and I had the opportunity to do his funeral service, even though they don't come to our church. And this last week, I got a text message from that principal who I did the funeral service for her husband, and she said the superintendent is looking for a parent representative to serve on the budget committee for the school board and for the county. Would you be willing to serve in that capacity? All of these things for us started with holy listening. How is God calling you to listen to God's Spirit and to your context and even to yourself? I believe that mission begins with listening. And if we do that, then God will unleash the power of the Spirit in all of our churches. God bless you and thank you.